Evening.
Yeah, thank you. I think we have good time. We can start off. Thank you for that very elaborated introduction. Sometimes you just wonder whether it is you, but once it is said, you just thank God. Anyway, tonight we want to talk about this second day for those people who missed yesterday. Yesterday, we were quite a big number, and we are hoping today we are also going to have people come in. So we are still talking about SNE learner assessment and the essence of assessment. We all know that I want to believe that majority of us are teachers, so we know that that is our responsibility to keep assessing children. But we also, our aim is to emphasize the importance of assessment in that when the children are not assessed, there are many children who go without being assessed, and because of that, they actually lose on the way to life or school life. And many times we find ourselves telling children, pull up your socks, pull up your socks, pull up your socks, or you can do better. Today, we want to talk about how you can actually be part of the children pulling up their socks instead of telling them to pull up their socks. So my introduction is about assessment. And assessment is part of life. It is in the classroom, but quite a number of us feel that when we talk about assessment of children, especially those with learning or who are struggling, somebody shrugs their shoulders and says, I don't have a child like that, so it is not my concern. But I want to tell you that as teachers or parents, we actually even cause special needs in the children who we call normal. So assessment is an everyday occurrence, everyday life occurrences. We go to hospitals for checkups, and the doctors will not give us any treatment without assessing us. We go when we are being promoted, we assessed. When we want to driving licenses, we assessed. Likewise, children assessment is an integral part of education and should be a continuous part of child's life. So assessment at broad term or a specific term, it's very, very important in life. So many children are left behind in education partly because the assessments done in education or in class do not always communicate the individual's child needs and potentials. And majority of children struggling in education fall through the cracks. And even though many of them, or quite a number of them, miraculously succeed, there are others who keep struggling. Children are still left behind because the actual level of performance is not yet known by the teachers. So we are saying no children should be left behind and every child matters. So what do we understand when we hear the term assessment? The concept of assessment lacks an universal agreement or an agreement that is universally pointed at or agreed on, because it has very many multifaceted applications, diverse contexts, varied purposes, and they all have different meanings and interpretation depending on the field. An agriculturalist or an architect will still use the same word assessment, just like we are using as educators. So assessment involves systematically collecting and interpreting diverse information to inform instructional and intervention decisions, as well as appropriate classification or placement choices. When we do when we think of assessment, we actually saying it is an ongoing process that requires in any field that talks about or involves continuous evaluation, measurement, and monitoring, and it must come up with at the end of the results is to come up with decision making. So importance of assessment in education. Teachers gather data through observations, cleanings, um, and various assessment tools to assess whether children are achieving their learning outcomes, all objectives. Assessment is a key element of educational process, and it has been shown to be directly linked to student achievement. Teachers use assessment data to determine which students need additional help and to identify areas in which students' needs need to be captured. So assessment also help teachers measure the effectiveness of their teaching methods and curricula. Well, anytime we talk about assessment in the classroom, we actually think it's a tool to help us, also a direction to help us move. What is next? But we also talk about assessment in the assessment that we are going to talk about is Build Classroom, though we call it educational assessment. So importance of assessment of a child to a parent, it has positive impact. Assessment play a crucial role in your child's educational journey or in the parent's educational journey. By identifying the strengths and the areas needing support, assessment pave the way for targeted interventions. So to the parent, assessment is very crucial. It also supports the children who are struggling. Many times, if you look at, I think we are all in Kenyans here, I don't know, I am suspecting so, but even if you're from another country, when we talk about struggling learners, if you look at the last system, 844 system, it has been very sad. I did a study one time, and for 10 years, I realized half of the population could not perform. Half could not perform in KCPE. Because we normally get about 50% fail and 50% pass. So the question is, when you have like about 2 million or 3 million children who have done the examinations, and 1.5 million have failed, where do they go? Okay, the CBC now is allowing the children to go on with education and to have different pathways. But let me tell you, at the end of the day, if they are still struggling, they'll still have problems. So for the parents, it is important that that they understand that these challenges can actually be helped, can actually be taken care of if the child is well assessed. Assessment precisely highlights the specific skills your child may find challenging, and that is in both academics and non-academic areas. So additionally, assessment also support the teachers, or if the child qualifies for additional support, teachers use assessment results to customize content and teaching methods. So for the parent, it's important for you to know that. We are not addressing parents here as such, but it is because we deal with children who have parents. And if there is a parent, some of us teachers, we are already parents, it's also good for us to benefit from the same. So this personalized approach ensures that each learner's unique needs are addressed effectively. Individualized educational program is another benefit. When the children have been assessed and they are below a certain level, they have so many specific problems. They are not able to work with age groups. They require an IEP. And that IEP is individualized to the child, such that while you have the other classes together, the IEP helps out in terms of what you're supposed to do with the child. So competence-based curriculum, the competence-based assessment is a systematic process of gathering a learner's knowledge, skills, attitudes, and learners with special needs are also included. So when we talk about the curriculum-based assessment, we know in the curriculum CBC, we have the CBA. And all children, even those with special needs, they also aren't supposed to be assessed, whether it is academic or non-academic areas. And when we assess them, it actually helps us to find out where is the present level of performance and how do we work from that present level of performance so that we can help children. I want to tell you that the CBC is a good thing, but we still need to make sure that when we are with the 4 points, with the 4 points that have been given for recording or for grading the children, we still need to find out when we talk about exceeding expectation, approaching expectation, below expectation, what are we saying? At the end of the day, we need to actually be accountable for all those terms, those levels from the highest to the lowest. If we keep on giving a child below expectation and approaching expectation, the parents will be discouraged. The child himself or herself will also be discouraged. So we can actually do further assessment so that we can help that child to move up. So there are 2 general categories of assessment, the formal and informal. For the formal assessments, or what we call standardized measures, they assess overall achievement of the student's performance as compared to the age group or the grade, or what we call normative grades, or standardized grades. Formal assessments are pre-planned, prescribed, and may include time limits, instructional and scoring procedures, and administrative guidelines. What do I mean? If we are using formal assessment, there must be some guidelines. And you have seen like the national assessment or test in the country. They have the invigilators come from other places. The instructions are given differently. That is the administration, including how the interpretation, when they mark, how do they grade? Very, very important. So scores from formal assessments are usually compared to the scores of normative group to ensure they are reliable and varied. Formal assessment includes tests like achievement tests, aptitude tests, criteria reference tests, and all that. Then we have informal assessment. Informal assessment involve observing children during both instructional and non-instructional activities. Unlike formal assessments, they are not data-driven, but focus on content and performance. These assessments rely on techniques such as observation and working sampling over selected time periods and various contexts. Example of informal assessments are observations, which we can talk about later, but we have different ways of observing a child, portfolios, anecdotal records, and checklists, among many, many, many other informal assessments. And all these, they are positive. They can give us information about the child. So what are the principles of assessment? And we are just talking about some. Assessments should be tailored to a specific purpose and should be reliable, varied, and fair. Assessment should be age appropriate. For example, you cannot give a child who is in preschool additions of 2 or 3 additions of 3 numbers, digit numbers. That will be unfair. And I know I have been in the field. I know there are some preschoolers or preschools that teach beyond the child's mental ability. And when we teach beyond mental ability, what happens is when they get to class 1 and they find the curriculum is lower than what they have learned, they stop functioning. That's when you find that the parent is saying, the child was reading before he came here. The child was performing very well before they joined standard 1. What has happened? Grade 1. It is because they were given a curriculum which was not there. So assessment will give us a direction to give age-appropriate content so that we know that a mental age of 5 years should require this kind of assessment. A mental age of 10 years will require this kind of content. So assessment should be linguistically appropriate because all tests are somehow related to language. For instance, when you're doing assessments, You need to know the language of the child and the language of the parents. If the child cannot understand English, you cannot test in English. If the child cannot understand Kiswahili, you cannot test in Kiswahili. Why? Because if you test them with a language they don't understand, they actually fail. So if you don't understand, you don't have the language, let's say the mother tongue, uh, is they can only speak a certain mother tongue, and you don't have it, you need an interpreter. Why? Because you need to get the bottom of what the child, when you tell the child, give me, and you tell them in Kiswahili or English and they don't understand, they will not be able to act. And then you say they don't follow instructions. So you need to find out what is the language of the child, and the language that you test with must be appropriate. So parents are also treasured sources of assessment information, and they are also audience. They give you the information, they give you the history. When you meet parents, I know in our schools we don't bother to ask the history of the children, but if of the children rather, but if you're assessing an individual child and you need to get more information about that child, it is good you gather information from the parents and from the teachers if the child is in school. For instance, we call it background information or historical information, history of the child. How was the child born? When the mother was expectant, was she sickly? Did she have any stress? Was she did she suffer any chronic condition? Because did she deliver well? How was the delivery? Did she take too many hours? What type of delivery? Was it induced delivery? Was it a normal delivery? What is breech delivery? All these things are important. It's not that we want to know the secrets of the parents, but it's important we know where did the problem start. So you move on to the time when the child started talking. Even that, before that, did the child sit on time? Did the child walk on time? Did the child crawl on time? What was the first word? When did he say the first word? And most of the time the parents will know, and you can jog your minds. Of course, if they don't remember, you don't have to stick there, you can move on to the next thing. So parents are very, very important. Get the information about the background of the child, and also they are important in the entire process of assessment, like we'll see later. The primary purpose of assessment is to improve practice and benefit the child, student learning, treatment, and intervention. If you're assessing a 2-year-old, like I assess all children, if I'm assessing a 2-year-old, I assess for intervention. And I have some of the very good stories or success stories. I remember one time there was this child who could not actually crawl, could not sit at 2 years. And the parent was actually my student. So after I talked about assessment, she came and said, do you know what you're talking about is exactly what my child is going through? And I actually told her, you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you see what will happen. As we are talking right now, I think the boy is taking his master's. We have had so many children who are now married. Before, they could not even read one word. And today they are married and they have families. So when you do a good job, and you make sure that the intervention is thorough and intensive, the child will actually manage. So assessment decisions must be based on multiple means of assessment gathered over time. It is important to make a judgment after several days of watching the child, physical assessment, physical observation, interview of the parents, and all that. So there are many types of assessment, and today we are only taking a few. We want to talk about the screening test, diagnostic test, formative, summative, multiple intelligence, and ecological tests. There are so many tests, but we only talk about this so that because of the time is very, very short. Yeah. So one of the tests is the screening test or screener. There are some commercial screeners, but we can also make screening tests. It's a vital activity in assessment. So screening is a process intended to identify potential problems in learning or development. Like, for example, I could come up with a screening test for a 2-year-old. And or if I'm in class, I'm teaching 10-year-olds, I just give maybe some a test in mathematics, and I'll be able, or a dictation in reading, or language, maybe even verbal, and I'll be able to tease out this child needs further assessment. So screening involves determining whether a more thorough evaluation for a particular problem is necessary, especially if the child is suspected to be at risk, in quotes. In other words, after the screening, you might say, I am thinking this child is at risk, or I'm thinking this child has a problem I'm not able to find. I can't get to the bottom of this problem, so I need this child to be assessed. So the outcome assessments are normally yes or no answers, responses. So they are not too much work. To determine whether there is a reason for referral for further assessment. The next one is diagnostic assessment. It comes as formal and informal versions. So diagnostic assessment is a pre-evaluation tool used by teachers and professionals. Its purpose is to collect information about a student's strengths and weaknesses in the specific skill area. These assessments can be either formal, such as standardized, or informal, such as teacher-made checklists. For example, you want to identify mathematical operation signs among the grade 1 class or grade 1s. You should be in a position to know who is confusing multiplication and addition, or division and subtraction, okay? Or who is not able to align the numbers the way they're supposed to, or who reads mathematics wrongly, from wrong direction, yeah? So, types of diagnostic assessment, we have the formal, like we have said, and we have the informal. The formal, the main purpose is to provide a broad view of students' knowledge. And informal diagnostic assessment, the main purpose is to measure students' knowledge, skills, strength, weaknesses beforehand, before you teach. Now, somebody yesterday asked, what is the difference between screening and diagnostic? Screening is so simple. You don't even have to worry about it. Even the simple quizzes you give can actually give you some information. And screening can be both academic and non-academic. The diagnostic, you need to at least plan a little bit more, so that you get to know the skill and the strength and the weakness of that particular child. So typically, educators only administer this assessment to selected students to determine a student's performance by identifying strengths and gaps in a student's skills, ability, and knowledge. They use the data provided from this assessment to plan, modify, and differentiate instructions. Diagnostic assessment is an important part of the psychological evaluation. So if we have psychologists here, they also do diagnostic assessment, just like doctors will do. And when they do their psychological assessment, and they come to us when we are also doing diagnostic assessment from the special education point of view, we compare notes on the same child. It helps to identify and understand the psychological problems that the child may be having or may be experiencing. The assessment also helps to determine the best course of treatment for the individual. So when we do a diagnostic assessment at the school level, we should be in a position to say this particular child requires this. So diagnostic assessment come in, there are various types of assessment strategies. And some of them, just to mention a few that we can use, like we can use interviews, we can use self-reports or self-assessment. Interviews is just the way we go for interview, just asking the child, how do you feel this morning? How do you feel about mathematics? We know we don't want to hear children telling us, I don't like this teacher. But let me tell you, it is important that the child tells you they don't like a certain teacher instead of keeping quiet. Because there are some children, when they don't like a certain teacher, they will never learn. We used to have a child somewhere in one of the counties. He failed throughout because he didn't like a certain teacher, just the face. But when now she was assessed for a whole year, her life was wasted just because she didn't want a certain teacher. Can you just imagine? So some of these things, just interview will just even help. So self-assessment, children will even talk about themselves. I like this, I don't like this, I like sitting like this, I don't like sitting like this, I like this kind of food, I don't like this friend. I remember one time my daughter, when she was 3 years, they were playing with another child almost the same age, just 1 year earlier, and that child did not want her. She came to the house crying, Mom, I'm in trouble, I'm in trouble. What's the problem? So-and-so does not want to play with me. I didn't take it lightly. I went to the house of my neighbor and I said, so-and-so, why don't you want to play with my child? Of course, the mother laughed. But to me, I was trying to safeguard my child's emotional ability, emotional state. So I asked where the problem is, and the other one just shrugged her shoulder. She said nothing. And from there today, 28 years down the line, 25 years down the line, they are still friends. So you can use checklists, we can use inventories like teacher-made tests, and we can use psychological tests. Again, those ones we need specialized, we need psychologists or educational psychologists to do those tests. So what are some of the benefits of diagnostic assessment? There are various benefits. They include, these benefits will definitely bring quality. One of the benefits is it provides valuable information to teachers to create customized lessons and activities for the child. It is usually informal and easy to use. It does not require high-level training and does not have standard protocols to follow. When you're doing informal diagnostic, it is actually you and your child. Yeah. Educators can adapt or change their methods at any time following the teaching learning situation. It shows quick results, which may help teachers identify learners' strengths and weaknesses. So now we go to the next test that we all know about, formative assessment. I don't want to talk too much on this. We all know that it's the other name for formative assessment is continuous assessment. At the university level, there's a time you just give one test, one assignment for that marks. That is not a continuous assessment. With formative assessment, teachers adapt instruction to better their teaching. Teachers can see how much has been retained by the child and when modify and whether they require to modify the upcoming lessons. Formative assessment usually comprise of the following key aspects. They're actually low-stake assessments. They can actually give you a goal which informs you on instruction. They give you an insight on learning status of the child. They help in identifying the knowledge retention and understanding. They can be offered daily, weekly, or just frequently. Generally short and quick checks. They are in terms of quizzes, games, presentation. You can even have a skill like music and all that. Summative assessment is the next one. Summative assessment measures learners' achievement and compares them against a predetermined standard or benchmarks. This assessment provides a summary of students' knowledge in a specific topic or subject, primarily for grading purposes. They review how much students have learned. We know about them, we have done them. They are either at the end of the term, at the end of the year, or at the end of the course or program. So in essence, summative assessment offers a snapshot of students' understanding and what they have learned in the space they have been given. So we all know what summative assessment is, but why are we bringing them in? We are bringing them in because they are also important. If we do a summative assessment at the end of a certain grade, let's say grade 2. Before you start teaching grade 3, it is important to analyze those marks, those grades, and those skills where the children have had a problem with, so that you can inform either yourself, or inform your colleague that this particular child requires more teaching on this, reteaching, or remedial, or require this kind of thing, or maybe this child can sit here, will do better if they are sitting in front or at the back, at the corner. It's important that they are also we also analyze them. So the difference between summative and formative and summative assessment basically is formative assessment is used to monitor student progress and guide learning. It is used to help teachers adjust their teaching strategies and provide students with feedback about their progress. Summative assessment is used to measure learners' achieve and compare it against the predetermined standard. The key difference between formative and summative assessment is that formative assessments are designed for the purposes of guiding teaching strategies, while summative assessments are used for the purposes of measuring assessment and comparing it against a predetermined standard. Yeah. So we come to multiple intelligences. I also combined them here as a part of assessment. This is an area that we have quite a number of teachers have not worked on, and quite a number of us have not really given much thought about it, but we can assess multiple intelligences. This guy by the name Professor Heward Gardner, he came up with multiple intelligences around 1983. Talks about, he has a book, The Frames of the Mind. Assessing children's abilities using multiple intelligences in the classroom is a variable approach that recognizes the diverse ways students learn and excel. So what are he came up with 8 multiple intelligences. There are actually 9. The 9th one is a bit difficult to assess, but the 8 are quite good. We are going to go through 8. And the reason was that he started giving some doubts about IQ tests, because at one time the developed countries were using IQ tests, and they started using IQ tests long time ago, many years ago. But those IQ tests were dividing people. There are those who are called those when they test certain ethnic group or a certain race, for that matter. That race, all of them, majority of them become are termed to have intellectual disabilities or mental retardation, while the other group are all gifted and they are normal. So he started wondering, there is something very, very wrong about this. And I remember one time I was joking with my students many years ago. I was teaching at a teacher training college at the Institute, Kise. And I remember asking the students, that time we didn't know anything about the hot dogs. And I asked them, if I ask you, what is a hot dog? And one student stood up and told me, it is a very, very hot dog. And you can imagine, if we are asking that was an item, if that was an item in the IQ test, the student will fail. Not because he doesn't know, but because his mind is totally different in terms of interpreting what he understands by a hot dog. A hot dog is a sausage, as simple as that. But we didn't know that about 30 years ago. So what are the 8 intelligences? One of them is verbal linguistic intelligence, that is word smart. The child is well developed in terms of verbal skills and sensitivity to the sounds, meaning, and rhythm of words. The other one is mathematics, logic, intelligence, or what we call number reasoning smartness. Ability to think conceptually and abstractly, and has capacity to design logical and numerical patterns. Actually, these particular 2 are more of what we have been testing in our school, cognitive. Then we have the musical intelligence, or what we call music smart. Ability to produce and appreciate rhythm, and also be able to use music instruments. Then we have visual spatial intelligence, that is picture smart, capacity to think in images and pictures, yeah, visualizations. Then we have bodily kinesthetic intelligence. Those are the body smart. This person has arthritis. Those people who are good in using their hands, their legs, yeah, they're actually very good in movements, yeah. Like we know there are people who never went to school, but they can employ us. They are worth the millions just because they can run, or maybe they can kick a ball the way you cannot kick. Those are the people we are talking about. Then we have interpersonal intelligence, people smart. These are people who are capable of leadership. They are motivation speakers. They are yes, interpersonal intelligence, people who can influence others, people smart. You can see a small child, for example, in your class, maybe he's the smallest child in your class grade 3, but he's the one who is telling everybody, keep quiet. I want everybody to sit down. And he is the smallest. That is a people smart. He has an intelligence. She has an intelligence that you need to find out more about it. You will need to find out from the parents, how does she work how is she in the community, at home, how is she in the field. You can follow her up. You see whether she is commandeering others, and you can give her leadership qualities. You can actually teach her from all those what she knows. Yeah. Okay, so intrapersonal intelligence, self-smart. There are people who don't talk much, but they are so much aware of themselves. They know who they are. They believe in themselves, and you cannot stop them. They know their values. They have their principles. Yeah, they don't bother others, but they stand out as very, very mature people. It is an intelligence. And then we have naturalistic intelligence, nature smart. We just planted trees the other day. So ability to recognize and categorize plants, animals, and all other subjects of nature. They are interested in the rains, they're interested in the sun, they're interested in everything that has to do with the nature. Yeah, how the animals walk, how the animals cry, how the animals sleep, all that. And you find they are all cutting books and cutting papers about anything to do with animals. So how does it come in when it comes to teaching? We can use thematic approach. Like, for example, a child is very good in music and not good in academics. You can use a song. You can use as just a word in music, or you can create music, or you can have her create music for songs, on words, on letters, on numbers, and you can teach any other subject from what they're interested in, where they're smart in. So understanding multiple intelligences, benefits of using multiple intelligences. One of them is tailor your teaching methods to address different intelligences. You customize it. Engagement, students thrive when learning, when their learning is aligned to their strengths. If I love what I do, I'll do it better. Then holistic approach, recognizing that success isn't limited to traditional academic subjects or traditional academic skills. The reason why we have left so many children behind in our life, in our countries, is because we have not been recognizing some of these children. I saw one time a movie of a child who was very, very severe in terms of, he had cerebral palsy, very, very severe. And the parents were not taking that child to school because he couldn't even be in a wheelchair. So he was left at home. So when the other children come from school, he wants actually to be part of the writing. He wants to be part of the school. So he'll take a pencil from their bag and he'll be scribbling things on the floor. So one time a visitor came and said, why don't you take this child to school? I said, but he can't even sit, he can't even stand, he can't even use a wheelchair. No, just go. So he'll be on the floor when everybody else is learning. Everything else was disabled. Everything else was disabled rather, except his mental ability. This boy, after so many years of being in school and being on the floor, he ended up becoming a very good musician. And the parents were shocked that he was even able to get married and had a family. So some of these things is a matter of what is it that the child can do that even if they don't, even if the others are, even if he is not doing like others, pick it up in class, pick it up as a parent. So how do we assess multiple intelligences? Observe students during class activities to identify their preferred intelligences. Self-assessment, encourage students to reflect on their strengths and areas of growth. They can actually talk about it. Project-based assessment, assign projects that allow students to showcase their abilities, creating multimedia presentation, writing a song, designing a model, anything you can think of. Then the last one, portfolio assessment, have students compile evidence of their work across different intelligences. With the CBC, we know portfolio is very important, and you can have this child post all his work in the portfolio. So the next one is ecological assessment. Now, ecological assessment involves direct observation, or evaluating a child in various environments where they routinely interact. The purpose of this assessment is to understand how different environments impact the student's performance at school. So whether they're at home, their village, whatever it is. It seeks to answer questions such as where the student faces difficulties, where they function appropriately, and what academic and behavioral expectations exist in each environment. There are some children who are called 6-hour retarded child. We used to call them 6-hour retarded child. And if you look at the bell curve, where we talk about the normal and the gifted and all others have intellectual disabilities, there is a certain group of children between the IQ of 70 and around 90 or 80, let's say even 85, because some of us have an IQ of 90 and we are functioning. But around 70 and 85 there, to about 2 standard deviations. They don't belong anywhere. We don't say, we say, oh, they are normal, but they are dull. So we talk about 6-hour retarded child. This child, when they're at home, they do retarded everything well, very, very, very well. Come to school, they have a problem. So 6 hours in school, they have a problem. When they get home, they don't have a problem at all. As a matter of fact, you cannot tell they have any issue at all. They don't have learning disabilities. They are within the norm, rather. But they are struggling with education. So these are some of the things we need so ecological assessment fetches them out in the different environments. By considering these factors, educators can better plan instruction. Ignoring a student's ecological context when assessing academic or behavioral issues may hinder effective interventions. So it's important we look at the environment of the child. Very, very important. So ecological assessment investigates a student's functioning across various contexts, including home, school, and community. Data is gathered through observations, interviews, and records focusing on physical settings, behaviors, interactions, and expectations in each environment. I've already given an example. A child who is very good in cooking, but they don't know what happens in school. This information guides the establishment of meaningful goals and appropriate support to enhance the child's performance. Teachers and parents need to be observant of their own child. How is the child moving around? How is the child interacting with the environment? Observation within the classroom environment, like teachers, what is the sitting arrangement? There are some children who cannot sit next to others. There's some, either they are quarreling or they are being quarreled or they are being harassed or they're taking somebody else's thing, or they just don't feel like sitting at a certain corner. Probably even the other thing is it could be that they can't see. So when you put them near a very wide lighted window, they cannot see, but they need light. So those are some of the things you need to work on. Maybe the child is low vision and you're putting him in the back because he's very tall, but he can't see the board. Those are some of the things we need to look at. Learning environment, materials, and instructional methods. Like, for example, if you have a child who is hard of hearing in class, and we were taught, when we were trained, we were taught to walk around. Yeah, that a good teacher walks up and down. Let me tell you, you are a good teacher, but when you're walking up and down and you have a child who is partially deaf, hard of hearing, he will keep on following you. If it is 1 year, they will even actually tell you, please don't move backwards. Don't go that far. Yes, that is a self-assessment. So that is important for you to know what kind of environment is this child in. And then social environment, how are they interacting with the peers? How are they interacting at home? There are some children who keep on quarreling with the adults, or they keep on quarreling with the siblings. And I'm talking about not only primary and preschool, I'm also talking about high school. In high school, we have a lot of problems. Yeah. So you need to know why that particular student, or at a sudden, he doesn't talk. He's withdrawn. What could have happened? Is it the teacher? Is it himself? Is it the peers? Is it the adults? What is the problem? Those are the things we are talking about. So processes of assessment in special needs, education, and decision making. So the assessment in special needs has a process. One of them is assessment in special needs education is a process that involves collecting information about a child's or learner for the purpose of making decisions about the individual assessment. It plays a very critical role in terms of determining the important decisions. Okay, so we also have evaluation. Information collected in the assessment process provide detailed information on the student's strengths, weaknesses, and overall progress. Then diagnostic assessment, that is the real assessment again now to get the actual problem and the skill. Then eligibility, is this child eligible to go to the special school, or should they stay in a regular school with probably consultation, or maybe with extra materials? Then if the child is seriously off, do they require an IEP? We realize that if you have a class of 50 children, even 35, and you have 2 children with IEP, it can be quite difficult. So we try to minimize as much as possible to the issue of IEP, unless you are in that special school. If you're in a special school, let's say, for example, you are teaching all your children, 19 of them, they have intellectual disabilities. I can tell you for sure, you will require 19 IEPs. So educational placement, where do I put this child after assessment? And instructional planning decision, what kind of methods do I need to deploy so that this child can learn better, whether it's physical, perceptual, language, cognitive, emotional, name it, including academic. Do they need full academics, or do they need functional academics? Yeah. So that is the placement alternatives by Dino. And from the bottom, you can see the regular classroom. All children, basically, inclusive education is advocating for full inclusion. So all children should be in regular class. However, if they're in regular class and they are not learning, they can move. You can have regular classroom with consultation, whereby you're having some advice from a special teacher. If they're not getting enough help, you can have them in regular class with supplementary materials and consultation services. Number 4, which is in blue, resource room. It is not well utilized in Kenya, except I know the private schools do that. It is very important. That's a very important placement. But this child should not be in the resource room more than 40% of the time. and they should only be taken away to there's a pull-out program. They should only be in a pull-out program only during the time they need enhancement on language, on reading, on arithmetic, and maybe writing. Yeah, these are the time on all these are subjects, agriculture, sciences. They should be together so that they are still included. So a pull-out program should not take more than 40% of the entire child's day. Then if once goes to us, then separate class, which we call a unit. The problem with the unit, and I have seen some of our schools, is the unit. Some of our schools, especially our public schools, you have a unit, but the children are literally separated from all the other children. They cook in I went to one school without mentioning. They cook the teachers cook in that room. The children sleep in that room. Yani, you see, there was one school you find a 3-year-old and a 25-year-old. That is not proper. So a separate classroom should also be well catered for and should be well thought. So separate classroom doesn't mean one. It can be several units or several classrooms, and so that they take care of the age groups. Then if they can't fit in a separate classroom, that is still partial inclusion, they can go to a private school. I mean, a separate school, a special school. And of course, the rest is either boarding or homebound and hospital for those who cannot come to school. But we are saying that all children matter. We should try to come as close as possible to the regular. We talk about least restrictive environment and most restrictive environment. The most restrictive environment is when you're going towards special schools and boarding and all that. Least is when we are coming towards the regular classroom. Thank you. So what are the roles of the teachers in assessment? The roles of teachers in assessment, in diagnostic assessment is essential for identifying students' learning needs and ensuring that each student receives suitable support to reach their maximum potential. Teachers and parents, we cannot afford to be writing, you can do better. That statement don't make sense to anyone. They don't make sense to me who is writing. It doesn't make sense to the child. It doesn't make sense to the parent. Because telling me I can do better, why don't you help me to do better? So we should be in a position to assess the child so that he can actually maximize his potential, reach his potential. So our business as teachers is we ensure that we collect data. Teachers collect information about students' performance, behavior, and progress. They observe, they assess, and record students' strengths and challenges. Individualized planning. Based on assessment results, teachers develop customized learning plans. They adapt instruction to target specific areas of need. Collaboration, let's collaborate with other stakeholders, with other special teachers, with counselors in the school so that we can become better. We can make our children's lives better in school. Including collaborating with the parents. Monitoring progress. Teachers monitor students' progress over time and adapt strategies. Change, if the strategy is not working, change it. We know some children have failed because we are stuck with one particular strategy. That's why we say teachers are researchers and teachers are also dancers. You enjoy yourself when you're teaching, and you also enjoy yourself when you are researching. And finally, advocacy. Teachers support students' needs within the school system and share assessment findings with the parents and administrators, even other teachers, without necessarily making a big deal out of it, so that the child can be helped. So this is the assessment processes. The parents, guardians are fully involved in the assessment of their children from the time they refer the children for assessment and actual steps of assessment. What are the steps? Screening. When you're screening, it's important that you let the parent know. You can actually do screening tests on your own, not necessarily telling the parent, but it's important for them to know. If you're doing diagnostic tests, you need to inform the parent so that you get a consent. Because if you come up with any information, we went to a school just recently, and the school was saying, some of the teachers were saying, parents do not want to hear that the children have special needs. Having special needs is not a problem. Staying without doing anything is the problem. So parents need to know that it is not about labeling, it's about digging into the problem of the child. So if the child is being referred, maybe after screening, there is pre-referral where the parent should be able to give consent, should be part of it. Do not allow any verbal consent. Parents can turn against you or turn against the school anytime. Say, I never told you. So make sure it is in writing. And even if the parent cannot write, when they say verbally, you make sure you write and you tell them that you have written. Eligibility, how do they, is the child eligible for special needs? We should be, the essence of assessment is to avoid children entering special classes or being labeled as special needs. But if once goes to us and they have to be there, that's okay. So let the parent be part of it. Let the parent be part of the program planning, that is the IEP. Call them for conferences. Let them discuss the child. Program monitoring. Even when you're monitoring the program, the parent is supposed to be there, because the parent is supposed to be telling you what they are doing at home with the child, and they should be giving you feedbacks. And even evaluation of the student, if he is going to be evaluated again, let the parent be part of it. For the child to be reassessed, assessment takes almost another 1 year or 2, because it can also be very expensive. But the IEP need to be modified as you continue teaching. Yeah, let the parent be part of it. Thank you. So what are the roles of the community society? In terms of when we talk about diagnostic assessment, one of them is awareness and advocacy. Communities raise awareness about the importance of early assessment, child finds. When the community is well versed in special needs, they'll tell you when there is a child who needs help. Yeah. When I was working in Tanzania, there was a move where parents will even be approached so that they can take their children to school. Support networks. Communities provide emotional and practical support to families during the assessment process. Very, very important. Yeah. So the society promotes acceptance, diverse abilities, and we need to help the society so that they accept our children. And the other thing is collaboration with professionals. Communities collaborate with educators, health workers, speech therapists, occupational therapists. All those people are very, very important. And if you have a hospital around you, you can actually, if it's a government hospital, you can approach them so that when you're doing assessment, they are part of the assessment. So what are the benefits of assessment, early assessment and early intervention? Why do I call it early assessment? Because most of the time when assessment, we are brought children for assessment, child is already 18. I'm calling them children because they still, according to the law, 0 to 18 is their children. So you find that a child is being brought to you when he is 17 or she is 18, and you still have to assess. 2 weeks ago, I assessed a relative, 18 years. And I realized that if that child was assessed earlier, we could have actually helped that child very, very many years ago. And this child was in a special school, but there was no assessment that was going on. So every time, if you look at the report form, you find the child has 12 out of 100, 120 points out of 1,000. I don't know what that means, because the child has never been taken care of. Assessment never took place. And one of the things I realized, the girl is very, very good. She takes care of her siblings. She cooks. She cleans herself. She is actually very good out of school. But when it comes to assessment, she could not identify the difference. She could not tell the difference between OVO and a 0. She could not identify a square. And she's in Form 2. So you can imagine how many children are like that. This one has been in special school for the last 4 years, and nothing has been happening. So what are some of the benefits? One, financial saving. When the parents, to the parents, you save parents finances, or you save them in terms of emotionally and the money they spend. The assessment is very expensive, and to maintain a child with special needs is very, very expensive. We did a study one time, I think 2003, and we realized for every normal child, in quotes, one with special spends about 30 times, because there is medical, there is a special shoe, there's a special this, there's a special teacher. So it's very, very expensive. So when we assess them early and we do intervention quite early, we save the parent. We save them in terms of emotional, we save them in terms of time, we save them financially. How about school? When we do early assessment and intervention, we save resources in the school. The government in Kenya is giving, I don't know about the other countries, I think even they are, like Tanzania, they are really funding the schools. Yeah, all these appliances and assistive devices that are being bought for the school, and sometimes they are not even being used. If the child was assessed early and came out of the most difficult areas and can function normally, you can save a lot of resources. And you can also prevent long-term struggles. Yeah. Instead of all the times parents are struggling, there are quarrels during PTA meetings, head teachers are quarreling the teachers, and we are staying overnight thinking, what do I do with Mary? What do I do with John? You can actually minimize some of these problems if we do assessment early. And for the society, of course, economical impact. A nation will spend so much money, something that we could have prevented. As a matter of fact, if we know, for instance, what causes some of the disabilities we are talking about, you'll be shocked how much we can save. Because some of them is money-made. Most of these causes are actually made by us. Yeah, and they are preventable. Yeah. So productivity, children who receive timely support are more likely to become productive members of society, contributing positively to the economy. So all of us, parents, schools, and societies, will actually benefit, highly benefit, if there is early assessment and early intervention. So this institute of ours will want to work with you. We do consultations where we support the children, parents, and teachers online or face-to-face. We assess children 0 to 18 years. And of course, if you have even more than 18 years, we still assess. I remember teaching a 23-year-old man how to read and write and to do mathematics in 5 months. But it was very, very intensive. You give him 1,000 shillings, he will know it's 1,000 shillings, but you can send him to the shops. All what he knows is he need to get change, but he cannot tell the difference between 10 shillings and 20 shillings. So we were actually counting real money in class. So it is possible even to teach older children. We also help in designing IEPs, individualized educational programs, together with the teachers, so that you understand. There are some teachers who have been told, develop the IEP, but they don't know how to develop them. I know the CBC is also requiring one of the documents should be IEP, but teachers don't know how to develop them. So we are going to teach how to do the IEP. It can be very difficult, it can be very tedious if you don't know, but it can be very easy. Of course, you still need a number of hours to develop an IEP. We also design individualized transitional programs for older children, 14 years, who are unable to continue with regular schools. They have a different path of pre-vocational and vocational path. We focus on functional academics and vocational training activities for learners who may not follow regular curriculum in primary and secondary school. And finally, we train teachers and parents in various areas related to special needs, including a program like this one. If you can, we can just impact on you some of these tips on how to assess, it will be good for us, and it will be good for you, and it will be good for the country. Thank you so much, and thank you for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Runo. So at this point, we are going to take questions. So how we do it is you raise your hand and then you'll be asked to unmute and then put forward your question. So if you can also put your question on the chat box and then we'll be able to respond. You can also respond or show your reaction through the emojis that are there. Okay, questions? Yes, Anastasia.
Okay, I want to ask something about the special children. So, apart from the assessment part, physically, is there a way that you can identify a child that is special through the physics? Thank you.
Yes and no. Most of the children with special needs cannot be identified physically, except if they have a physical disability. Maybe they have they have they are paralyzed, maybe polio, or maybe they are not able to walk, or not able to sit. But you find others who have special needs. They look like you and me, but when they get to do activities either at home or in school, they cannot manage compared to their age mates. So it is not easy to identify this. We call them subtle or hidden disabilities. So, and that's why you find that a parent will be screaming, "Oh, my child does not want to do this. My child is very does things which are very different from the others." They may think that punishing that child will help, but punishing that child makes it worse. Let's say, for example, the child has emotional disturbance and you are beating him. You can beat him and beat him from morning to evening. It will not change. Yeah. Next. Have I answered your question, Anastasia?
Yes, you have thanks, but let me ask something else about the dyslexic kids.
Yeah.
So, what can one do to ensure like they get whatever you are teaching? Because in most cases, you will find that you are moving in a circle. The same thing that you have taught, after like they move for a few minutes and they're back, they can't even maybe you had done recognition of number one. The child has moved akienda, maybe the child has gone to the toilet and back. They can't even remember of something that, or like, okay, like hawakumbuki had tackled something of the sort.
Okay.
So how will somebody help a dyslexic child?
Okay, just like any other child, dyslexic or dysgraphia or dyscalculia, we have non-conventional methods. These children don't learn with the same kind of methods that they don't learn traditionally. Because one of the problems is they have short attention. They look like they are deaf and they are not deaf. They look like they are blind and they are not blind. You talk to them, but the information you have given them is not processed. They look at text. We use another term, word blindness. They look at the text and they cannot make A or B of that text. They are like blind and they are not blind. So they require non-conventional methods, and that's what we call specialized methods. I'm actually a specialist in the area of learning disabilities where dyslexia falls. So if you can, if you get in touch with the institute, we can come and give a talk, or if there are many people who need it, we can actually offer it.
Okay, sawa sawa, thank you.
Thank you very much. Bango Joseph.
Yeah, good evening and thank you so much.
Yeah.
2 questions, actually not questions, but I'm seeking for help in these 2 areas. One, I've got a student who has had persistent selective mutism all the way from kindergarten to year 9. This child never talks to teachers in school. However, he is very verbal at home. Is there a way in which such a child can be helped, or it is too late? Because in my opinion, I thought like homeschooling could be the most ideal because he talks at home. Then he could be registered for exams, but the parents were not very keen to look at that possibility. So I'm asking if there is a way in which such a child who's already, I would consider him to be a senior student because of his grade level. And then this also has affected his performance in class. He performs very dismally, but then he never speaks to any adult in the school compound. Number two. Sorry?
Finish.
The next one is about handling cases of dyslexia. Well, I happen to have also trained in this area, but again, training is one thing, practical is another thing.
Yeah, it's true.
There are few students who, in my opinion, get better when they are given reading recovery programs. And eventually they excel in their reading. However, there are also few who, however much of differentiated approach and specialized approach that we give, will just not get it, but they perform well when they are tested orally. And if they have got a read and a scribe, then these kids perform excellently. Now, is a reader pen and a final solution to help such children? And if yes, do you have any supply or source? Sorry for asking that loudly.
Let me start with the last one.
Yes.
Children with dyslexia, they are actually as diverse as any, like the way we are right now.
Sure.
So there are some who can write. There are some who are so good in just hearing. So we look at the area. First of all, both children should be assessed. Even as we are talking right now, they should be assessed. Because if they were assessed 3 years ago, they should be assessed again, whoever assessed them. So that at least they look at the other new strength or new characteristics that has developed since you have been teaching them. So when the child can do very well through verbal, through answering the questions orally, move on with it. Because we have assistive devices that help the children. Nowadays, education is not about pencil and pen, a pencil and paper, not anymore. So look at the strength of the child, and like you may need even to look at, for both children, you need to look at multiple intelligences and find out what is it that they need, that you need to enhance so that some of these children open up. Now, learning disabilities or dyslexia is a lifetime condition. But they can actually perform and they can actually manage in life. They will still have issues, but they can still manage in life. As a matter of fact, some of them are so good in business, very good, much as they can write a check. So we need to look at how to use assistive devices, and maybe which other strength do this child with dyslexia have. Now, the one with selective mutism, and he's doing quite well at home. And when you say that, I remembered. When I was in primary school, I think that is why I took special needs. And that is why I used the word John, the name John. I had a boy who was one class behind me, never talked for 7 years in class, in the whole school, for 7 years. When he gets home, because he was brought up by his grandfather, he's a chatterbox. He'll tell the grandfather who beat him, who bullied him, who did what. Of course, he didn't pass. He didn't do well in school. Those are many years, about 50 years ago. So it is possible that you may need to look at the child again and maybe assess the child at home, even if there is no homeschooling, to see what are the interests. You need to involve the parents to tell you what happens. So involve the parents in the assessment.
Okay.
Okay. Next.
Yes, Catherine Kitonga.
Yes, thank you. I have a question. How do you assist a child who has limited interests and is non-verbal? In
Okay.
the sense that in class, the child will not participate in the activities that you're engaging the child, but will prefer to do things that actually interests the child. How do you bring in the child to participate and the child is non-verbal?
Okay. How old is the child?
The child is 3 years and 8 months.
Okay. First, for again, it's assessment. We need to find out whether they have language problems, because again, they could be talking at home and they have phobia for the school. But this child has a recovery rate that is higher than the older children, because you can enhance language with music, and you make sure that the parents engage the parents after the assessment, to make sure that there is a lot of verbal interaction at home. I normally even say a small gadget like TV should be on, radio should be on throughout, so that, because if they are not deaf and the child is hearing, so they're actually building in receptive language. It's what they are missing is expressive language, and non-verbal. They could actually be able to communicate with actions. Within no time, you find that maybe within no time you see the child is actually coming up with one word, two words, but they need a lot of talking. And that is why it's very, very important when the children are small as the day one child. Talking to children is very important. This particular child need one language. If they're speaking Kiswahili, if you're speaking English in school, if they speak whatever language you decide with the parents, you stick to one so that you don't confuse them. I know of a relative who did not speak up to 5 years, and today she's a chatterbox. I have also a special child who never spoke up to 7 years. And by the time they were leaving our school, they had already started talking. So you're not so badly off, Catherine. You can actually enhance language, look for activities that can interest her, and most likely, and first and foremost, the child need to be assessed, and the parents need to tell us what is it they notice at home. Have I answered your question?
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Ray.
Okay, you're welcome. Next.
Thank you. We have Anastasia.
Okay, I heard you say that dyslexia is a lifelong condition.
Yeah.
In the past I handled a brother and a sister.
Mm,
So the sister was a little bit older than the brother.
mm,
The mom is a doctor and she was telling me that she had the condition,
mm,
but it ended at around 12, 13 years.
mm.
So I wanted to confirm, is it true that it ends or it's just a condition that one has to live with?
That was not dyslexia. Actually, it cannot be learning disabilities. There are some conditions we call developmental disabilities, or milestones that have not developed. If those milestones have not developed and proper intervention is done, some of those children completely pick up to 100%. But if it was identified as learning disabilities, dyslexia for that matter, dyslexia is just one of the branches of learning disabilities. It's a lifetime. You can actually read. You can actually download some of these things. So if somebody tells you it's temporary, then it is not learning disabilities. It's not dyslexia. What they do is they improve, because normally their intelligence is very high. So they actually, when they become adults, they are able to accommodate certain things. So you'll never know they have a problem. So, and because they know they have a problem, they avoid certain things. A good example is a man that was in a story. He got married, and a 7-year-old boy son kept on telling him, Daddy, show me how to read, because the man will not allow the baby to come to him for homework. Say, go to your mom, go to your mom. But when the boy now insisted, the man started crying. The father started, I said, Daddy, why are you crying? And he said, I can't read. So the man had married for 7-8 years, and the wife did not know that he was actually having dyslexia. And the wife actually realized, oh my God, no wonder I am the accountant of my husband. So they know how to accommodate certain things. But I don't know, I have not heard, unless another literature has come out, that it comes out, that they can outgrow. They accommodate it and they know how to go about it. But if she came out, it could be something different. And I'm yet to find out how the person just came out 100%. What I know is they can improve up to 80%. Hello?
Yeah.
Yes, they can improve up to 80%. So they can still read, but they'll still be having several problems, spelling problems, mathematic problems, reading problems. Yeah.
Okay, let me ask something else.
Mm.
I have a case of a child.
Mm.
I'm a playgroup teacher. He's so good in recognition.
Mm.
But now when it comes to writing, he doesn't want to write, not unless we allow him scribble.
Mm.
But he grasps things very fast.
Mm-hmm.
But writing is a problem. Would that be dyslexia, or is it another condition?
How old is the child?
He's 4.
That is all what I don't want to say the condition, because I have not seen the child. You need to look at the motoric, you need to look at the way he handles the pen. You can actually do what we call prompting, physical prompting, by holding his hand and you help him to do cursive. Yeah. Even making circles and lines. Do it several times a day to
His
actually.
grip, his grip is good. He can hold a pencil, but he never likes writing. But when it comes to recognition, when you introduce a concept, he'll be the first one to get it.
Okay.
And yeah, and he's actually the reason I was asking the first question, if you can assess a child being special through by looking at his physical. Okay, his physical, there's a way you can see his coordination is not very good. But now, where I get confused is because he will understand things very fast. He's somehow eloquent in English when I compare him to some of his peers. But now my main challenge with him is that he doesn't like writing. But when you let him be, he will scribble. The grip is good. The muscles are well developed. So
Maybe
I don't know whether there's a condition that maybe would make him be so.
No, I will not. I cannot say off head that there's a condition until that child is assessed. So we need to take that child for assessment, and we find out, or the person finds out exactly what the problem is. Whether, because we know also writing has something to do, motoric has something to do with the brain. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Joseph, did you have something else?
This graph is a fine motor issue that affects writing and the movement patterns, but it is possible for the assessment to be concluded fast, but there's a possibility of being a fine motor developmental skill challenge or dysgraphia, or a combination of both.
Yeah, it could be a neurological problem.
It could also be neurological.
It could be a physical problem, and that's why I said it's important. It's not wise to just make a comment that they are suffering from this kind of disability, condition. Or condition. It is important to get the child or children, when you suspect something, get the child assessed before you make a conclusion. Very, very important. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
That
you.
is with you.
Thank you very much, Joseph, for that, and the rest that asked questions. Any more question before we conclude? Yes, Irene.
Hi everyone, thank you for this informative webinar. I have a child who is 3.5, not potty trained, has vocabulary but very limited. But I'm not so sure if he's autistic. Reason being, he can't make sentences. Like he can't speak in a sentence. Again, he holds on to a certain toy throughout. He's scared of people. But that's all I have observed so far. I think I've met him just for 2 days now.
Okay,
So
and
my
that's
challenge is, what is the problem? Well, when he joined us 2 days ago, and I've noticed that whenever we take him to the toilet, he's using the toilet. But I feel as if the parents were crippling him by dressing him in a in a diaper throughout. Now he's joining the rest and using the toilet normally. But he's still not able to speak in sentences, and he has no much confidence, and he will hold on to a toy, although not throughout.
okay. Again, we don't want to use terms like autism or anything. It could also be language problem. Could be language and speech and language problem. It could be anxiety. How old is the child?
He's 3.5.
Yeah. Even to remove the child from home environment, that transition from home to school, it's also, it can be very traumatizing for small children. That's why you find some children cry throughout when they are dropped in school. So again, I would advise for you to use anecdotal records. When they come, when the child come, record the behavior. You can record every 30 minutes for about 1 week. You see the pattern. As you're still doing, if you're already able to help him to toilet train in 2 days, that means he may not be having a serious problem. However, you can actually record, you can study him, observe him for about 1 week, and you see whether there is a recurrence of certain behavior. Again, those are some of the things that you'll use when you refer the child for assessment, if need be, because you can also do some of this assessment and do intervention quite early. Yeah?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right.
Thank you very much. Anastasia?
Okay, I want to ask something else. Since mostly we who are in the preschool, especially play group, we receive the children first before they proceed to the other classes.
You receive
Is
what?
there,
Yes.
we receive the children
Mhm.
before they interact with the other classes.
Yes.
So we have that first interaction with them. Are there like some warning signs that maybe like those like very alarming signs that if you see in a child, like generally, like they can help somebody to guide somebody whether an assessment is needed? Because you see at this age, you'll find that maybe the speech delay and the parent tells you we live in an apartment, she doesn't mix with the other children, or maybe we own a home, he's the only one around, he doesn't have children to interact with. So you'll find a child who is approaching maybe 4 years or even past 3 years, and the child still can't speak, the child can't play with the others, and also things like feeding and potty training. So are there those alarming things that show that there might be a problem that we need to look out?
Of course, if the child is 4 years or 3 years, it's not potty trained, that is already a problem. Whether they are living in a home by themselves or they don't interact with other children, they are adults in that house. So a child will still speak at with the normal milestones, follow the normal milestones if nothing is wrong. So we expect a child of 2 years, 1 year, to have mono speech, mono one word speech, 2 years telegraphic, and if they are 3 years and they are not fluent and they don't have vocabulary, then there is a problem. However, before you refer, you can still also do a serious intervention on language because it's a play group, you make sure that they interact, so that by the time you are referring the child, don't just jump into referring the child. By the time you are referring the child, you have actually said, I have done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's why I think this child we need an advisor. But do as much as, because play group has a lot of language learning, isn't it? A play is in itself has a lot of it develops language, it develops socialization, emotion, physical. Play is very, very important. So when they are playing, look at it, just like I have told your colleague, use records. Try to trace that child every 30 minutes, every 30 minutes, every 30 minutes, as they interact with the others, so that you also don't jump into conclusion that they have a problem and then you get a problem with the parents. Remember, parents are very defensive.
Yeah.
Parents will even fight you that you are labeling the child. So make sure that you go slowly. You are studying the parents. You're also telling the parents what to do. They involve the child more. Talk to the child more. Like now, I am a grad child. I have 6 grad children, and one of them now is 2 months. And we are talking to that child throughout 2 months. The other one is 1 year. We are talking to that kid throughout. We sing for them, we put programs for them, we read for them. And now the small girl of 1 year, though she was delayed in language, when we put music, there are certain music tones, now she is actually following you. You just hear her sing. So enhancing music is language is very important with different ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Here's Joy Onyoike.
Hi,
Hi.
I have this learner in my class. That learner has already been assessed
Okay.
and he has been diagnosed with autism.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the problem that I have is that the learner doesn't want to learn.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't want to hold pencils.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I use the physical prompting,
Mm.
he doesn't want to write anything.
Mm.
The other thing is that for now he's banging doors,
Mm.
chewing clothes, and chewing papers.
Yeah.
Now, what might be the problem?
Just that autism. If they have already been assessed and he has autism, those are characteristics of autism. So what you require is now specialized methods of discouraging a behavior, and you cannot discourage all of them. Is he classic autistic or high functioning? Does he have language? Can he speak?
Mm, No, he's not verbal.
So he's classic autistic. If that classic autism
Yeah.
is the fearist, the one for rocking and holding things, and so you need to get the one of, as you observe, you take the most fear and most deviant behavior and you work on one. Like, for example, can he sit even for 5 minutes? Yeah, if he can sit for 5 minutes, or if he can look at you, every time he looks at you, you give an activity and you reinforce
Uh-huh.
and you be very consistent. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
We used to have timeout where you take them to the dark room, but nowadays I think it is not very encouraging. But you can still put him at the corner for him to stand for
Uh-huh.
5 minutes, and you let him know, because you have done this, you're going to stand here. But 1 minute, 2 minutes, he comes back. So be very consistent in the kind of behavior modification you're going to do. Yeah. And more
Now
of
the
in the training, you make sure that there is eye contact.
Sure.
Mm.
Now the challenge
Mm.
while doing the behavior modification,
Yeah.
the boy will just will just go under the tables,
Mm.
start turning the tables.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's why I'm saying you be consistent and be patient, because you cannot do undo a behavior overnight. Some of these
Sure.
some of these characteristics, because they are in it, they can even take a year or 2 or 3 or 4. That's why when you have an autistic child, you can't have more than 2 in a class, in a regular class.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have a teacher
Thank you.
assistant?
I'm the one.
You are the teacher assistant.
Yeah.
So you are 2 people.
As in, I'm the special needs teacher.
Yeah, but do you
I
have an
shadow that
assistant?
boy.
But do you have an assistant?
Yes.
Okay, fine. If you have an
Yes.
assistant, if you're a special education teacher, now look for activities that you can do and focus on the activity and the child. Then the
Okay.
improvement is faster than when it is only one teacher in class.
Just a brief one, just to encourage that teacher was spoken. We have got such cases existing, and 1 day, 2 weeks may not be adequate. As Dr. Ria said, be consistent. I have a child who had actually been under the table for one whole term. Nowadays, he sits in class and takes his notes and answers questions and is working well. So just don't give up, do the
Yeah.
right intervention,
Yeah.
and be consistent. Thank
Sure.
you.
Thank you, Joseph.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, so I have a learner in class.
Mm.
The learner has not been assessed in any case. Yeah, the learner tends to forget too much, and then after giving out the instructions,
Mm.
she doesn't take any instructions, such that if you allow her to respond to any question you've given after the instructions,
Mm.
she tend to give a totally different from what you've been explaining, even the simpler thing.
Mm.
Yeah, the writing or the speed is also too slow.
Mm.
So I don't know what could be the main thing that tends or makes the child to respond totally away from what you've been explaining.
Yeah, I think a child like that, like I said, has not been assessed. It's important to assess, but for the time being, we can call it first aid in quotes.
Uh-huh.
What the instructions? Like for example, somebody like me, the way I'm speaking, I'll be a disaster to that child because I'm speaking very fast.
Yeah.
So you need to lessen the words. There is
Yeah.
something we call task analysis. You can go about it, yeah, where you break the task to small little bits, including the instructions. Like for example, instead of saying open the door, stand up and go open the door or shut the door, you can say stand up
Uh-huh.
and you wait for the child to stand,
Yeah.
walk to the door,
Yeah.
you be patient, the child walks to the door,
Yeah.
close the door, you close the door,
Yeah.
and they come back. See, I have given 4 instructions against 1.
Yeah.
That should go also for academics. If
Yeah.
you give assignments, you make sure she also repeats the assignment. I want us to turn to page 10, and so that we don't embarrass her, you also ask other children, Jane, what did we say? What page? And then you can also tell her to repeat. That way, she will not forget she has already committed herself, and her mind has also said. So it could be a learning disabilities. I don't want to use terms because I
Yeah.
have not seen the child, but it could also a mild intellectual disabilities. I don't know the child, but if you break down the teaching, the instructions, you'll enjoy teaching the child.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, it is 9.
Thank you very much, Daktari, and all the participants for your time. If you have any question that you need to be addressed, you can put it on um, our WhatsApp. The number is displayed there, or you can email, and then we'll be able to respond. The recordings of the these sessions will be posted on this website that I've displayed there. So anytime you find some time, you just go to our website, the SNE section, you'll find the recordings there, and then you can review them. So thank you very much for your time. Have yourself a good night, and see you later.
Thank you. Thank you, participants. I've also enjoyed my session. That session. Thank you so much. God bless.